Welcome to a deep dive all about prepping for a food biotechnologist interview. Kind of like gearing up for a culinary adventure, but instead of whipping up a gourmet meal, you're diving into the science that keeps our food safe and delicious.
It's fascinating work.
We've got some awesome resources from RoleCatcher, like their interview guides and career guides, so we're serving up some seriously helpful insights to get you ready to impress.
Yeah, imagine you're the detective that makes sure the food we eat is free from all those nasty pathogens. That's what a food biotechnologist does every day.
Okay, let's just jump right into it. What inspired you to pursue a career as a food biotechnologist? It seems simple, but it's your chance to really show off that passion that led you to this field.
Yeah, it's like your food science origin story. What got you interested? Was it documentary or a personal experience
Mm.
or maybe just that desire to use science to improve the world through food? Share a specific moment or story that shows why you love this field.
And a follow-up to that might be, what specific aspects of food biotechnology are you most interested in? So you can really showcase your knowledge here.
Exactly. Maybe you're totally fascinated by CRISPR and creating disease-resistant crops, or passionate about developing sustainable food solutions. This is your chance to connect your interests with your skills and your career goals.
Nice. That actually leads perfectly into another common question. What are the most important skills for a food biotechnologist to have? It's like that recipe for success.
It is. It's a mix of technical expertise and soft skills.
Right.
You need a solid background in biology and chemistry and microbiology, of course. But don't forget critical thinking, problem solving, communication. Those are super important for working with teams and making sense of all that data and handling those unexpected challenges that pop up in the lab.
Yes, so true. Imagine the interviewer asks, can you give me an example of when you used problem-solving skills to fix a food safety issue? How would you answer that one?
Think about real life experiences. Maybe you had a project where something got contaminated, or you found a potential safety risk during an internship and took steps to prevent it. Share a specific situation, what you did, and the positive outcome.
RoleCatcher's AI can really help with this. It can help you tailor your answer to a specific job.
Yeah, imagine a tool that looks at keywords and skills and helps you craft responses that hit all the right notes.
Like a personal interview assistant.
Absolutely. RoleCatcher can help you highlight those skills and experience that are a perfect match for the job.
Let's talk about staying ahead of the game. Here's a question that comes up a lot. How do you stay current with the latest developments in food biotechnology? It's like asking a chef how they stay inspired and up to date on all the latest culinary trends.
It's about that commitment to never stop learning. You got to stay informed in this field. Are you reading journals like Food Technology or the Journal of Food Science? Do you attend industry conferences? Mention specific resources that keep your knowledge fresh.
And those real-world examples are gold. Like maybe you read a recent article that sparked your interest in a new research area.
Exactly. Sharing those examples shows you are genuinely engaged and curious.
Now for a question that sometimes throws people off. How do you approach problem solving in food biotechnology? Sounds broad, but it's a chance to showcase your analytical thinking process.
It's all about showing you can approach challenges systematically.
Right.
Do you start by getting all the info you need? Do you break the problem down into smaller steps? Or are you a brainstormer who likes to come up with tons of solutions? Whatever your style is, walk them through your thought process. Use an example to illustrate your approach.
What's a challenging problem you've had in food biotechnology and how did you overcome it? I bet our listener would love to hear a real-world example.
I remember working on a project developing a new way to detect foodborne pathogens. And we hit a wall. Our initial tests were all over the place. I checked everything, protocols, equipment, talked to colleagues. Turned out it was a tiny calibration issue with one of the instruments. Attention to detail and persistence. That's the lesson.
That's so valuable and so relatable for our listeners. It makes me think about RoleCatcher's Career Guide. They talk about work environments for food biotechnologists. Labs, offices, production facilities, even travel. Pretty cool variety.
It is. The work can take you from the lab to the factory floor, even to conferences around the world.
Okay, ready for the next interview question?
Bring it on.
This one focuses on your experience. Can you describe a project you worked on in food biotechnology and your role in it? It's your time to showcase your skills and how you apply them in real-world situations.
Pick a project that shows off your technical skills, your problem-solving abilities, maybe your team spirit. It could be anything from developing a new method to detect pathogens to doing research on genetic modifications' impact on crops, or even like creating a food safety program for a local organization. Be ready to explain your role clearly and the impact of your work.
And a good interviewer might ask, what was the biggest lesson you learned from this project?
Yeah, this is where you can show your self-awareness. Did you learn about data analysis? Or teamwork? Or maybe a deeper understanding of the ethical side of food biotechnology? Sharing those insights tells them you're not just skilled but also capable of growth.
That's such a great point. It reminds me of how RoleCatcher's AI can help prep for those tricky follow-ups. You can practice answering questions and get feedback from the AI.
Right, it's like having a virtual coach in your pocket.
All right, let's dive into a content that's all about a crucial aspect of food biotechnology. How do you ensure the safety and quality of food products through biotechnology? It's about demonstrating your understanding of the tools, techniques, and regulations that keep our food safe.
Think about the methods used in food biotechnology to prevent spoilage, control those pathogens, and ensure those products are nutritious. You could talk about things like genetic modification, or maybe talk about fermentation. And don't forget about your knowledge of regulations and standards, like HACCP.
It's amazing how much goes into making sure the food we eat is safe and delicious.
Absolutely. Food biotechnologists are essential for public health.
Here's a follow-up you might get. Can you give me an example of a time you applied your knowledge of food safety regs to fix a potential issue? What would you say?
You need to show your experience and quick thinking. Maybe you spotted a contamination risk, or a problem with a label that could be misleading. Share a real example, what steps you took, the regulations you followed, and the positive outcome.
That's a great example of how you take that theoretical knowledge and put it into practice. It reminds me of a section in RoleCatcher's Career Guide. They talk about job growth and demand for food biotechnologists. Reassuring to know this field has a bright future.
It does. This industry is always evolving, so they need skilled food biotechnologists.
Okay, you ready to tackle another one?
Yeah, let's do it.
This one's about communication. How do you communicate complex scientific concepts to non-scientific people? This is a crucial skill, especially in a field that affects everyone.
Imagine trying to explain genetic modification to someone who has no science background. You need to translate jargon into plain language that anyone can get.
You got to be a science storyteller.
Yeah, use analogies, metaphors, real-world examples, like comparing gene editing to editing a recipe, or explaining microorganisms in fermentation like they're a tiny workforce. Don't underestimate visuals, charts, graphs, diagrams. They're powerful.
I love that analogy of microorganisms as a tiny workforce. So much easier to picture.
Exactly. Visuals can make science more accessible.
A good interviewer might ask, can you give me an example of a time you explained a complicated scientific concept to someone who doesn't have a science background? What comes to mind?
I had to explain food irradiation to a group of people once. They were worried about safety. I started by acknowledging their concerns and telling them their health was my priority. Then I used simple language and some visuals to explain it. I compared it to X-rays. I explained that it kills bacteria and makes food safer, and that it doesn't make the food radioactive. By the end, they understood and felt better.
That's great. Clear communication can really bridge the gap between science and the public. You really highlighted empathy and listening.
It's all about building trust, especially when talking about things that might be controversial.
Speaking of trust, let's talk about ethics. It comes up in interviews, especially in a field that's as innovative and fast-moving as food biotechnology.
It does. Ethics is central to what we do. Interviewers want to know you're aware of those complex issues and committed to doing things responsibly.
So how would you answer a question like, how do you manage a team of scientists in a food biotechnology project, especially when it comes to ethics?
You need to show your leadership style and how you create a culture of ethical conduct. You might want to talk about open communication, transparency, respect for diverse perspectives, and highlight the importance of sticking to scientific integrity, accurate data, no conflicts of interest, and following all the regulations and ethical guidelines, of course.
I bet a follow-up could be, how do you handle disagreements on a team, especially when ethics are involved? How would you handle that?
It's about showing your conflict resolution skills and how you encourage respectful dialogue. Start by really listening to everyone's perspective. Then try to find some common ground and a solution that works for everyone and aligns with ethical principles and project goals. If needed, bring in a neutral person or an ethics committee. It's important to create a space where everyone feels comfortable speaking up.
That's a great approach. It reminds me of how RoleCatcher's AI can help you understand the company's ethical values. It looks at the company's website and everything to see what's important to them.
Yeah, it's like getting a glimpse into their culture.
That's super valuable.
It is.
Okay, one more before we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
How do you balance business needs with ethical considerations in food biotechnology?
This shows if you understand the complex issues. You need to acknowledge that advancements don't happen in a bubble. There are social, economic, and ethical impacts to consider.
It's a balancing act. What are some dilemmas that come up in this field?
Think about the debates around GMOs. They could really increase food production, but there are worries about long-term effects.
Or lab-grown meat. Could be a solution to ethical concerns about animal agriculture, but people have questions about cost and how consumers will react.
You got it. A good answer would acknowledge those different perspectives and show that you're committed to finding solutions that are both ethical and scientifically sound.
So it's not about having all the answers, but being aware of the complexities and being committed to doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. You can strengthen your answer by talking about a time you faced an ethical dilemma, what you did, and what happened.
Those real-world examples are powerful.
Before we move on, how can RoleCatcher help someone prep for this kind of question?
RoleCatcher's AI can analyze a company's ethical framework. It'll scan their website, mission statement, news articles, everything to find their core values.
Wow, so you can tailor your answers to their ethical priorities.
Right. Shows that you get them and their culture. Well, we've covered a ton in this first part. Tough interview questions, continuous learning, ethics in food biotechnology.
And we've seen how RoleCatcher can help you.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll keep going with this deep dive into prepping for a food biotechnologist interview.
We'll be back with more insightful questions, tips, and career insights. And we'll see how RoleCatcher can help you craft your answers to really stand out.
We'll see you soon for part 2.
Until then, keep those culinary curiosities going. Welcome back to Prepping for a Food Biotechnologist Interview.
We're picking up right where we left off, diving deeper into those tricky questions.
It's not just about giving the right answer. It's about showing your passion, your knowledge, your critical thinking skills.
Love that. So let's jump into one that tests leadership. How do you manage a team of scientists on a food biotechnology project?
Leading a team of brilliant minds. It's about inspiring them, motivating them, and guiding them.
So not just being the smartest one in the room.
Not at all. It's about making sure everyone feels valued, heard, and empowered.
So communication is key.
Absolutely. You set clear expectations, give constructive feedback, listen to ideas and concerns, and knowing how to delegate tasks to the right people.
Makes sense. But things don't always go as planned, right? What if they ask, can you tell me about a time you faced a challenge while leading a team? How did you handle it?
That's when you show off your problem-solving skills. Conflicting personalities, obstacles during research.
Or a tough decision.
Exactly. Tell the story honestly, the steps you took, and show how you adapted, learned, and guided the team through it.
RoleCatcher's AI is great for this. It can look at job descriptions and find those leadership qualities they value.
That's right. You can focus on those specific skills like conflict resolution or building a positive team.
Okay. Let's shift gears to how do you stay up to date on the latest developments? Classic.
Here, you demonstrate your commitment to learning. This field is constantly evolving with new tech, research, regulations.
It's like asking a chef how they keep their recipes fresh.
Exactly. Going to industry conferences is great, learning from experts, networking, and subscribing to journals like Food Technology.
I bet those journals can get pretty technical. How does RoleCatcher help with all that info?
Their career guide breaks it all down, like summaries of research, trends, explains complex things in a way that's easy to grasp.
Nice. Like a cheat sheet to staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Let's get back to those interview questions. Can you describe a project you worked on in food biotechnology and your role in it?
It's time to make your experience come alive. Choose something that highlights your skills.
Doesn't have to be a huge, groundbreaking project, right?
Nope, not at all. Could be a new preservation method, research you did during an internship, anything.
As long as you explain your role and what you accomplish?
Right. Did you create a new product? Spot a safety issue and fix it? Were you published? Sharing those achievements shows you can make a real impact.
They might even ask, what was the biggest challenge on that project and how did you overcome it?
That's where you show resilience. Unexpected results. Equipment trouble.
Maybe a tight deadline.
Whatever it was, describe how you tackled it, the steps you took, what you learned.
Showing you can think on your feet and find solutions. Let's talk about food safety. How do you ensure the safety and quality of food products through biotechnology?
It's about showcasing those regulations, the best practices, the techniques that keep our food supply safe.
Feels like a lot to cover. Where do you even start?
Definitely start by mentioning you're familiar with HACCP.
I've heard of HACCP. Can you break it down a bit?
Sure. Imagine you're on a production line making yogurt. HACCP helps you identify potential hazards at each stage, like contamination, temperature issues, packaging problems, anything that could affect safety.
So being proactive.
Exactly. And you can talk about other things too, like GMPs or techniques for controlling pathogens.
Speaking of pathogens, how can RoleCatcher help with a question like, can you give me an example of a time you applied your knowledge of food safety regs to fix something?
RoleCatcher is really helpful here. It can analyze those job descriptions and see what safety protocols the company really cares about, whether it's allergens, sanitation, whatever.
So you're not just giving a general answer, you're hitting those specifics.
Exactly. Shows you really get it. Now let's talk about ethics. Always a big topic. How do you balance business needs with ethical considerations in food biotechnology? This one shows if you get the complexity of the issues, you need to understand that progress has social, economic, and ethical impacts.
A tough balance. What are some of the ethical dilemmas that come up?
GMOs are a good example. Potential to increase yields, but there are concerns too.
Right. Or lab-grown meat, a solution to ethical concerns about animal agriculture. But people worry about the cost and if consumers will accept it.
A good answer acknowledges the different sides and shows you're committed to finding solutions that are ethical and scientifically sound.
Not having all the answers, but being willing to wrestle with those tough questions.
Exactly. Share a personal experience where you dealt with an ethical dilemma, what you did, and how it turned out.
Always helps to hear real stories. Now, before we move on, how can RoleCatcher help with this?
RoleCatcher's AI is great at figuring out a company's ethical framework. It can scan their website, mission statements, news articles, all of it.
So you know their values and can tailor your answers.
That's right, like getting a sneak peek at their ethical DNA.
Amazing. Okay, ready for another one?
Hit me.
This one's about the future. How do you see the field of food biotechnology evolving over the next 5–10 years?
This is your chance to show your vision, your understanding of where things are going.
It's like looking into a crystal ball, but with solid analysis to back it up.
Exactly. Think about CRISPR, lab-grown meat, artificial intelligence. What will their impact be?
Exciting times.
They are. When you answer this question, connect the dots and explain why these trends matter.
What if they follow up with, what excites you the most about the future?
That's where you let your passion loose. Do you want to create a more sustainable food system, personalize nutrition, solve global hunger?
Showing them you're not just after a job, you're in it for the long haul.
Right. Genuine enthusiasm goes a long way.
Before we go to the next question, how does RoleCatcher help someone stay on top of these trends?
RoleCatcher curates all the latest news and research. You can even get custom alerts.
So you're always in the loop.
Always. It keeps your answers fresh. Now, for a question that makes some people sweat, what are your salary expectations?
The money talk. Uncomfortable, but unavoidable.
It is. But it's a chance to show you know what you're worth. Do your research beforehand. Look at sites like Glassdoor, Indeed.
What if they want a specific number?
Be confident. State your range and be ready to explain why. For example, you can say, based on my research and experience in mention relevant skills, I'm looking for something in the range of, give your range.
What if they're trying to lowball you?
You got to stand your ground. You bring a lot to the table.
Know your worth and don't be afraid to say it.
Exactly. RoleCatcher's AI can help you here too. It can look at salary benchmarks and give you negotiating tips.
Helpful. Okay, one more before we wrap up this part.
Okay.
How do you communicate complex scientific concepts to people who aren't scientists?
So important. Science is everywhere these days, and everyone needs to understand it.
How would you explain gene editing to someone who's never heard of it?
Simple language, no jargon.
Analogies.
Analogies are great. Like gene editing is like editing a recipe. Or tell stories.
Yeah, stories make things stick.
They do. What if they ask for a specific example, like a time you had to explain something complicated?
Pick a good example, maybe a presentation you gave, a blog post, explaining a food label to a friend.
Doesn't have to be super formal.
Nope. Just show them how you made it clear and engaging. Visual aids. Simple language.
I bet RoleCatcher could give your feedback on how you communicate.
It can, for sure.
Yeah.
It can analyze your language and help you sound more confident.
Like having a coach right there with you.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, we've done a lot today. Tough questions, continuous learning, ethics.
And we've seen how helpful RoleCatcher can be.
Stay tuned for part 3. We'll have even more insights to help you ace that interview. Welcome back to the final part of this deep dive into getting ready for a food biotechnologist interview.
We've talked about a lot already, from technical skills to ethics, but we've saved some of the toughest for last.
It's like a grand finale, right?
Yeah, exactly. These last few are meant to leave a lasting impression.
So let's make sure you're ready to wow them.
All right, let's do it. This one's all about looking ahead. How do you see the field of food biotechnology changing over the next 5 to 10 years?
It's like they're asking for a prediction. What's the future of food?
Kind of, but we're not looking for magic, we're looking for insight. What trends are shaping the industry? Sustainable food, personalized nutrition, gene editing, artificial intelligence.
Too much is happening.
There is. It's a really exciting time. Don't just list trends, though. Explain why they're important. How will CRISPR affect things? Will lab-grown meat become more common? Paint a picture of that future.
A follow-up might be, what excites you the most about the future of food biotechnology? That's your chance to really show your passion.
It is. Whether you're excited about solving world hunger or building more resilient food systems or personalized nutrition, let it show.
That enthusiasm is contagious. It tells them this is more than just a job to you.
Exactly. Now let's talk about something that can make or break a job. Company culture. It often comes up during interviews.
For sure, they want to know you'll fit in.
Right. And that your values match up.
So how can someone get a feel for the company culture before they even walk into the interview?
RoleCatcher can actually help with that. Their AI can look at the company's website, mission statement, news articles, all of it.
Like a sneak peek behind the scenes.
Exactly. You can then use that info to shape your answers. It shows you've done your homework.
Great advice. It's all about finding the right fit for both sides.
It is. Now this one's a classic. Do you have any questions for us?
It's your turn to be the interviewer.
Right. Ask thoughtful questions. What are their research priorities? What's it like working on the team? What are the chances to grow and develop?
Those questions tell them you're curious and engaged.
And it helps you decide if this is the right place for you.
It's a two-way street.
For sure. Okay, last one, and it can be a tough one. What are your salary expectations?
The money talk. Always a bit awkward.
It can be, but be prepared, confident, and professional. Do your research. What do food biotechnologists usually make?
And think about your skills and experience, too.
Absolutely. When they ask, give a clear range and be ready to explain why. You could say something like, based on my research and my experience in your skills, I'm looking for something between your range.
What if they try to offer you less?
Don't be afraid to stand firm. You deserve to be paid fairly for your skills.
Know your worth.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher can help you here too with salary info and negotiating tips.
Super helpful. Well, that's it for our deep dive into prepping for a food biotechnologist interview. We've covered so much, from those tricky questions to understanding what companies are looking for and even talking about salary.
And we've seen how RoleCatcher can help you every step of the way.
Remember, be prepared, be confident, and let your passion shine through.
The future of food is in your hands.
That's all for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.